I firmly believe the best day that I have in any company, in any day of my work, is when I get 3 belly laughs in that day. And I am 100% committed to this in terms of its effectiveness. It sounds simple, trite, whatever. It doesn't sound like it has anything to do with business, but it's all about people. And it's all about engagement. And it's all about that engagement creating a desire to be there in this organization and do the hard work that you're doing.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know, it's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy, it's comedy, it's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey guys, it's Erin here. Welcome back to Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck. I am Erin Hetzakostas. If you're just tuning in after 5 years of podcasting, I co-host this with my good friend Nicole, but do interviews on my own because she has a real job and I do not. I am a keynote speaker and author that is obsessed with authenticity in the workplace. But anyway, I nabbed a good one today. It's always great when we can have a guest on that's sort of top of the food chain in the C-suite, in particular in the CHRO or Chief People Officer role, which is what Bruce Wallace is. So Bruce Wallace is our guest today. He's the CPO, the Chief People Officer for Newman's Own Inc. and for Newman's Own Foundation. And if you're not familiar with this brand, although if you're a Gen X person, you definitely are, it's been around for 40 plus years, founded really on the back of Paul Newman. God rest his soul, who was an actor, along with an author. I didn't know that he co-founded it with the author A.E. Hotchner. And they make several products. You probably know them most for their salad dressings, although, as Bruce says, pizza is actually their biggest seller. They do pasta sauces and cookies, and they even do dog food, which I didn't know. And Bruce is a great guy. I've known him for several years. It's funny. We jumped on a call last week, pre-podcast, and it was reverse. I was like, it's fancy meeting you on Zoom. We've always met for coffee in person, so a little different than the usual. So this one's on Zoom as well. And here are some of the things that we talk about. We talk about something he calls career advancement conundrum, the career advancement conundrum, and how we should think about that differently and get through that. We also talk about the number one thing he looks for when he's keeping an eye on talent, when he's scanning the room in a big meeting, a boardroom, et cetera. And so something to keep in mind. We also talk about the biggest misstep that he believes you can make in an interview. At least for him, it's a major misstep. So you got to hear about that. We also talk about Newman's Own really innovative, I call it 50% ruled initiative, where they mashed together two of their things and did something really creative. And, stories like these are so great because then you can sort of sit in them and seek inspiration, mold them, 50% rule them, and come up with your own ideas as well. And then we also talk about the 3 things that he needs every day to make work suck less. So fun interview. Bruce is a great guy. Bird's eye view. We talk about lots of different things, but you definitely don't want to miss the views and the vantage point and the humor of Bruce Wallace. So without further ado, enjoy the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you. Our audience always loves when we can nab, somebody at the top of the chain, especially in human resources, sort of the elusive, chief people officer role that has this bird's eye view. So, I think the first thing I want to talk to you about is Newman's Own and Paul Newman. Maybe tell us a little bit about Paul Newman. Most of our listeners are sort of Gen X, but give us a little background on him and the company and sort of the mission that you guys have.
Yeah. I mean, I find Paul Newman's story to be just totally fascinating. And there's great books out there if you ever want to read up on him. But I mean, my own compelling desire to be part of this organization was knowing that he was actually involved, right? He was upfront relative to the civil rights movement way back, right, in the day, right? So he was an early pioneer to supporting causes and the right causes. And then, he finds success. And as he often would say, largely true, yes, hard work, but sheer luck. He happened to have the right look, right? Those beautiful blue eyes and so forth, right? Somebody's highly successful. And then how do you share that? How do you kind of allow others to have some success in life? And so he, with his friend A.E. Hotchner, right? They start making salad dressing for their neighborhood in Westport, and they're giving it out to neighbors and so forth. And the people are like, well, geez, we need some more of this, right? And thought, okay, let's try to sell this. We did that. But if we're going to do this, again, I need to benefit other people. So he starts Newman's Own, and all of our profits go to kids who face adversity every year. My personal thing was just like, I love the fact that he was a race car driver. I'm a car enthusiast. We talked about, I was a theater major as an undergrad, so I just loved his work, on camera and on stage. And then the fact that he's a philanthropist, I mean, what better kind of life in my mind to help others. It's just something that I wanted to follow and just so happy to be a part of it. Since 1982, and we've given over $600 million away at this point since 1982, every year, all profits putting kids who face adversity.
I didn't realize it started by him actually making salad dressing and sort of handing it out.
Yeah.
What a great example of just little things can spark. Steph, we have to go back though. You were a theater major. I did not know this. How did I not know this about you? This sort of explains some of your authenticity, your sass, your humor, I think. Now I'm starting to understand a little bit more, but I also know you're very sort of introverted. What was the dream with that? And how does that shape what you do today? Because you're obviously not, an actor now.
Yeah, all the world's a stage, right? The dream, it actually just kind of came to me because for me, it allowed me to be something than what I am, what I was at the time, right? So I started out in college as a business major. And by the time I got to college, frankly, I was tired of studying all the discipline that one must have for that. And so, but graduating from college is an absolute must in my family. And so if I was going to do that, I needed to find something that I was totally passionate about. And just discovered theater. Actually, I had a roommate who was across the hall from me. He was an engineering major at UConn, and he had switched to theater. And so I just began talking to him. And before I know it, the next year I was kind of auditioning for the theater department at UConn. And that's what I loved about it. It allows you to put on all these different masks and be different people outside of perhaps who you are and explore kind of what motivates them and bring that forward. So it was always something that I've loved. And it's served me well, largely, I think, in life in general, because again, maybe this is why I'm in HR. I love to understand what motivates people, why people do the things that they do. No, I'm not on stage anymore, but as I said, all the world's a stage.
Yeah. And is there been a time where you're like, oh gosh, you say something or do something and you're like, oh, that's got to be the theater major in me?
Yeah, it's hard for me to parse those two things now. It's so ingrained, I think, in who I am. I mean, there are times when I've had to maybe give a presentation, right? Or, literally try to take on a different persona because I would absolutely be just nervous to do that. But if you think of it as a character where you have the words scripted, the emotions you're trying to share and put out there on stage, it does make it a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, I think that's only good for people that are really good at theater. If you're not, don't try that at home, right? Because then the inauthenticity comes out. But if you're a trained actor, and nobody else.
Yes, a thespian.
I was actually a thespian in high school, believe it or not. Did not study in college, but I Yeah, I played basketball and then I did the school plays. So I was always running from like basketball practice to over to our little theater and loved it. Wasn't great at it, but loved being on stage. I know that's shocking to you.
The fun, no, not at all, not at all. And wonderful at it as well.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I know you're passionate about is something you call career advancement conundrum. Oh my God, that sort of so sticks with me. What do you mean by career advancement conundrum? What are people struggling with there?
Well, I think actually you hit the nail on the head, right, in your book, because you're talking about sleep running, right, and all the stuff that people fall into and what they think they have to do, and they're doing it because they've been conditioned to do so, right? It's like someone who aspires to a leadership role because that's where they get the next level of money, the next level of, kind of control over something. Not because they necessarily want to lead a team of people to do something better, right? To accomplish a particular goal or outcome. I think often people don't think about that when they're making that step, but it's typical of a lot of organizations. I'm sure you've seen it, right? I mean, to advance your career, you have to, somehow become a leader of people. And I love when an organization actually creates a technical track, right, for people who either don't want to do it or it's really just not their forte to do that. So the conundrum is, all right, what do you do? How do you do it? How do you get there? There are three keys in my mind relative to gaining opportunities that may not be evident. And often you'll have someone who's kind of a advocate for you because they see something in you, they see the capability, they see the drive. So if you're a person who can kind of take accountability, right? You got to be the owner of whatever it is you're doing, full responsibility. If you're a person who kind of leans into and knows how to confront conflict, right? You don't triangulate. You don't talk to people on the side about whatever you may be having an issue with. You talk to the person you're having an issue with, right? You deal with that conflict in a productive and respectful way, but you work through it, right? That's really key. And then the last one is if you can build relationships, because my gosh, if you're not a person who people want to work with, you're kind of dead in the water. It's not productive. And frankly, it's no fun. So the conundrum is, what is it that you really want to do? Less in my mind, and look, it's different for each person, right? For me, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted, but I certainly learned that knowing A, what I don't want, and B, being open to all sorts of learning experiences that may not necessarily be an upward move, but they may be to the side, right? But as long as you're learning and you're limiting kind of where that step can take you, then you are malleable enough in terms of where you can go and what you've experienced and what you know to move throughout an organization. So don't get locked into like one thing. Would be kind of advice number one. And then again, you just kind of through it, through relationships and network and so forth. There's more to it than that, but that's just my 2 cents on.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are really good qualities. I guess my question, and maybe you just go back to them, but I'm hoping maybe you won't. When you're sitting in a room and you're observing, a meeting, some people are in a meeting or leading, and your eyes are probably already always out for, the next level of talent, right? Who's going to be stepping into roles that are, vacant, et cetera. What's one thing that you're watching or looking out for that maybe people don't realize you're watching and looking out for, either consciously or subconsciously?
Are you showing up? Are you really paying attention to what's being said, how people are literally sitting in the room? What are you observing and how are you using that information, right? Are you calling out the person who's maybe not saying something because they may be more introverted, right? And you want to bring out whatever it is that they can contribute. But it's the showing up, it's being part of it. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to meetings where, I don't know, there's 15 people in a room or something, and, the conversation is among 4 people or something, right? So that's maybe an exaggeration, but if you're there, you should be there showing up, participating in some way. So I'm looking for someone who, as I said before, they're taking ownership, they're taking accountability, and they're actually having an opinion about all sorts of things, not just their area. Right. They may be right, they may be wrong, but they're kind of involved in everything and really being part of whatever issue you're trying to solve, or whatever purpose of the meeting is. You're there for a reason.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody that you've sort of sponsored, as the word we call, you're sort of fighting for, you're advocating for, that maybe your boss, the CEO, or other executives, were pushing back on? And if so, how did that go? Or if people are in those situations, how do you do that? Because a lot of people talk about sponsors. I did an episode once a bazillion years ago about anti-sponsors and a post about it. Like, nobody talks about, you could have Bruce as a sponsor, but usually, you could have multiple people in the room, but, a lot of times an anti-sponsor can trump that if the sponsors aren't willing to sort of really fight back. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, you were asking the question that I did have a thought that entered my mind that I have to be careful about talking through because it's somewhat recent. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly been in situations where we're picking a leader or talking about talent in general, and someone is dismissed for some reason. And I mean, look, we all have our biases, right? Different people have different ideas of what a true leadership qualities are, what's important. But yeah, and you differ from situation to situation. But in general, right, leaders have followers, right? Is this person going to garner, right, the trust and support of whoever you're asking them to lead? And so, yeah, I've had to convince others to evaluate further, right? To test the things that they feel this person perhaps didn't have, right? To not be kind of closed off to an initial impression. It's kind of like interviewing on some level, right? I mean, you're in a 1 hour interview, and most of us who've been doing this for a period of time, you're going to form an opinion probably in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And I do that, right? Just like anybody else. But then I take the other 10 or 45 or 50 minutes to either confirm or refute what my initial impressions were based on what I'm observing. So it's really the same thing in my mind around looking at talent. You're going to kind of test, either confirm or refute, maybe first impressions. And the one that I'm thinking about turned out to be quite successful. So I'm pretty proud of that one.
That's great. Interviewing. I was always really bad at interviewing, to be honest. Interviewing people.
Why?
I think I didn't spend enough time preparing. And in preparing in an authentic way. Like, don't give me that crap, the standard, I'm sorry, HR, like situational or whatever behavioral questions. And I think the reason I make that statement is all my best talent was when I knew somebody that knew somebody. They were maybe coming from internal. I could go do private investigation into them. Yeah, sort of authentic referrals, right? Versus anyone I felt like I hired through the traditional external process where maybe they had some external referrals, went through the interview, didn't turn out so well. What advice would you have for old me or for others who are doing the interview process? Is it the wrong questions? Is it the preparation? Is it certain things we should look for that we aren't? Any tips that have made you maybe a little more successful than the rest of us in that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, one being, what is it that you, what are the must-haves versus nice-to-haves for one, right? Making sure that you're clear on those two things. I mean, you've seen as much as I've seen, I'm sure, a long list of all the things that you need for this job. And like, there is no perfect person. I used to have an old boss who would say, you take them out of the freezer, freeze dry, and you put water on them and boom, instantly they're perfect. It just doesn't exist. So what are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves? really taking the time, I still think it goes back to what we were talking about before, to try to get to know this person as a person versus as a applicant that you're going to plug and play, is another piece of it. I am a big believer in behavioral interviewing, meaning what someone did, how they behaved in situations in the past. I mean, really 8, 9 times out of 10 does kind of depict or show you what you're going to experience, right, in the present or the future. Our behaviors don't tend to change that greatly. And so, yeah, I mean, if there's someone who, say, is, somewhat meek, reserved, whatever, in an interview, and, right, they need to be dynamic in a role, what have you, that's where we're going to start poking, right? Like, tell me about a time that you have just had to go toe to toe with someone who was perhaps at a higher level than you in the interview, or rather in the work environment. And yeah, I mean, can they do it? Do they have a story? Does the story kind of hang together in terms of maybe they weren't successful? What did they learn from it? That's the other big one too.
Yeah.
Or go back and say, look, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a few different ways you can kind of suss that out.
What's the biggest mistake people make when they interview with you that they maybe don't know they're making mistake?
Biggest mistake, babbling on. I mean, I'm open enough, I think, to people who have a story to tell. And, if they're kind of wise enough to kind of wend their way through that story and then come back and make sure that they've answered the question, that's fine. Because you're giving me more information about how you think and how you operate and what you did in that situation, whatever. But if you're just kind of meandering and you lose track of kind of what the actual question was and you're not building on anything, then I have to intervene and say, let's move on. That's not a good situation.
Yeah, because then you're picturing them in a board meeting, in a customer meeting or whatever, and going, that might translate there, and that's just not that's not how we want it to happen in those other situations. Yeah, totally. Good point.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews, and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
I want to talk about DEI. Big in the news, right?
Big, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies sort of pulling back, having pressure from people, random people, sometimes random people, right? You are a Black man leading a chief human, resources group. What are people in general getting right about DEI, and what are they getting wrong? And like, if nothing else, is that this sort of pullback from some companies a catalyst for maybe positive change? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, the companies that, back in 2020, following George Floyd and all that, were really public about statements and what they're going to do. Yes, many have pulled back due to resistance and pushback, but I think many of them are still doing things. They're just doing it more quietly. If they're good leaders, those leaders understand the importance of having a diverse representation within the workforce. Most importantly, to I think the question you asked was it's inclusivity, right? Being inclusive in terms of all of your staff. Everybody's got something to contribute, right? Why would you possibly minimize someone's ability to contribute? That's just the stupidest thing on the planet. Right? I mean, it just is. I'm sorry. You've hired these people to be adults. They have opinions. They have experiences. Let's let them contribute, right, to the success of the organization. Look, we all have different perspectives on things. Thinking that DEI is like black versus white or whatever the case may be, within white, within black, within whatever population you choose to look at, they're not the same. Everyone has different perspectives there, right? So it's really just, I think, allowing the perspective of each person to contribute to the success of the organization. Don't give that up.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it's not the centerpiece for the time being. That's a tough line to walk, I think, in terms of, especially for a public company. That's a harder piece, but there's another piece of it that goes to, I think, integrity and kind of moral center, right? If it's the right thing to do, then you do the right thing. And there's going to be those who will always push against that. That's just my personal feeling. And it's hard to do in an organization. I get that. It's hard for the CEO to take that stance sometimes because, it's got people that they're accountable to. I get that.
Yeah.
Where it will go going in the future, hard one to say. I would like to think that we'll continue to make strides.
Yeah.
Probably not the greatest answer on the planet, but it's such a hard topic.
I think what you said, there are a couple things that really stand out to me. One, if you break it down, I mean, you started with the I, like, why wouldn't you want inclusivity? And then I would go backwards and say, well, okay, why in the hell wouldn't you want equity? I mean, explain to me, give me an argument of what, and then why wouldn't you want diversity? So one, I think if you look at those things and maybe, to your point, at first, when these things happen, I get really pissed. Yeah. And then, we go through this process, right? I have the exorcism. And then I'm like, well, maybe, just maybe. I think the smart companies will maybe not centralize it so much, make it part of the fabric, make it more authentic in how they do it, maybe not so programmatic. Yep. Sometimes too, I think simply rebranding. I think we are fickle humans that we get sick of the same words. And so if it just, now is called belonging at the company, but it actually more effective in reaching the same goals that DEI, quote unquote, had before. So I think, and a lot of leaders on the call here, I mean, whether your company is sort of pulling out or not, like a Lowe's or whatever, and publicly, I think you as a leader, whether you have that in your title or not, I'd say seize this opportunity to say, no, you know what, screw that. I'm going to do simply what's right and do it in an authentic way. And, maybe not even lean so much on, the programmatic stuff and do from my heart what's right. I remember when I was in Payflix, there was a time when I always shook things up a little bit. I know that's surprising. And my HR business partner, I said, can I get a report? I mean, I run a major division of the company, major-ish division of the company. Can I get a report on pay based on gender? Yeah. And it was one of these shush, and this is not one thing you want to fight for, Aaron. And I know years later, while I was still there, all of a sudden there was an initiative, and quite frankly, we semi-quietly bumped up, several females from an equity perspective. So, yeah, I think that's my message to people too. Like, shake the trees to do what you think is right. And there was a reason I did that. It wasn't just because I was a woman CEO. And I'm like, right, I think I had seen some things. I'm pretty sure that catalyzed that, right? And so I started to shake the tree, and eventually the leaves came off, or whatever metaphor is.
Well, the equity piece is always interesting to me as well. I often have this conversation where it gets it gets conflated with equality, right? And so there's a tendency, we'll say, well, yeah, I treat everyone the same. And it's just kind of the way that I kind of march through my life, and this is the way I lead, or whatever the case may be. And to which I say, does everyone need the exact same things to be successful, right? To grow. There was somewhere I saw this really great illustration that to me just represents it all, where there were like three people, and, one was super tall, one was, medium height, and one person was like in a wheelchair or something. And they all were wanting to ride a bicycle. And so, the tall person was given this really short bike, right? The shorter person was given this really tall bike, and the person in a wheelchair was just given a bike at all, right? And they couldn't use it. And so then the next illustration is the tall person has a bike that fits them because that's what they need. The shorter person has the bike, right? And then the person in a wheelchair perhaps had, I don't know, a recumbent bike or something like that, that would allow them to bicycle like everybody else and contribute as much as they possibly can. And that's, in my mind, the most important aspect of looking at that E, right? The equity piece of those. What do you give to each staff member, each employee, so they can be as successful as possible and contribute to your organization? That's truly key. And it's less about, it is about doing the right thing. It's less about, to your point, kind of a system or something that we're going to put on some broad platitude and say this is what
right.
It's really about driving the best outcomes within your business through the people that really are probably the biggest asset that your business has.
Yeah, I love that. And it's simple things like, well, how do you know what they need? Maybe ask them, make it part of like every one-on-one or every 3 months. What do you need that you're not getting? Or or every freaking day, right? On a meeting, right? I've heard of, I have a friend who works in nonprofit, and they have a thing where they get on meetings, and it's basically like, what's hindering you today, right? We don't know whether it's a cold or a fight with their, partner or whatever. So, I think we forget to ask too. We don't have to look at them and know what bike they need,
I've never seen that illustration where, a typical org chart has, a pyramid and, the leaders at the top, goes, and then but what's interesting in my mind is when you flip that, right? You put the leader at the bottom, still at the point of that pyramid, but it goes up because that leader is really enabling the people within the organization to deliver as successfully as possible, giving them what they need to be fully engaged in the tools and so forth, right, to meet the goals of the organization. And it's that leader's job to create and enable that to happen.
Yeah.
So I love that kind of way of thinking about leadership. It's helpful to me, and it kind of, I don't know, creates kind of that maybe overused, right, servant leadership.
Yeah.
It is kind of what it is.
Yeah, no, I love that too. I think, we are there to knock down barriers and give people things they need. That is our number one job as leaders. Absolutely. I want to talk about, I love this initiative that you guys are experimenting with, which is turning into sort of this concept of a generosity index. But can you go backwards and it's all started through a pizza truck. To me, it's really creative and hopefully will be inspiring for people listening. But yeah, tell us about the pizza truck and the generosity index and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, I mean, if you know Newman's Own in terms of its origin story, most people know it through initially the salad dressing, and then it was pasta and so forth, popcorn, lemonade, whatever. But actually, our biggest category is pizza. The pizza truck was a way for us to kind of get out there, grassroots. It was wild. It was this bright, it was a beautiful green, big truck. It wasn't like a little food truck. And we went to roughly 10 different cities across the country. We went up and down the East Coast, out to the Midwest, Chicago, Milwaukee, I think, and then out to the West Coast, LA, San Francisco, and so forth. And what we did was, it was a pay what you want pizza truck, right? You bought a slice of the pie, all of our frozen pizzas. They rotated from city to city. And you could pay nothing, or you could pay as much as you wanted. And at first, with us, all of our profits go to the foundation. So they all go to, kids who face adversity. And what we were doing though in doing this was introducing, of course, people to our products. They loved that. It was really cool. And then we were quietly actually gathering data, which was fascinating because obviously given what we do, all of our profits, again, go to the foundation each year, measuring generosity across the country. So we actually probably only about 3 weeks ago introduced the generosity index. And we had all sorts of interesting data like, okay, who's more generous, say, among the boroughs of New York City, right? Well, in this case, just so you know, right? Staten Island, most generous.
Really? Yes, of course I want to know Staten Island.
Staten Island, yep. I think we were maybe a little surprised, but that's the case.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we were also like, okay, is it Yankees fans versus Red Sox fans, right? What's the most generous city among those that we went to in the country?
Oh, you have to answer that one. People are listening. They want to know.
What'd you guess? What'd you guess?
I mean, the intuitive would be Red Sox because New York's sort of known as this, a little bit colder city, but
Yankees.
Yankees.
Yes. Yeah. I don't remember the exact number on that, but I want to say it was like $1 more per slice that Yankees fans, yes, contributed. City-wise, it was LA was the most numerous. I think it was like $5.54, if I remember correctly, per slice average of the cities that we went to.
They're freaking happy there. They're in the sun.
You're right. Music. Swifties versus Olivia Rodrigo.
So for intuition would say, Swifties, but
ding, 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 ding. You're right. Definitely. So it was really fun. It was a fun way for us to look at generosity across the country with different metrics and so forth. We tried it for, I think it was roughly 2 months over the summer. The Pizza Truck traveled. Rolling out the index now. Drew Barrymore's show, we got a little spotlight there. They were kind of interested and they picked it up and we're talking about it recently. It was pretty cool. But it also gives us the opportunity with all of our other product categories, perhaps going forward, to continue the truck with different products and kind of measure a few different areas of generosity across the country. So just kind of a fun way to look at it.
I of course love it. I mean, I'm a big fan of, difference better than better, right? And going out but it's also a bit of an example of the 50% rule. You sort of smash together, what you do best, which is your pizza product, right? With the other thing that is so central, which is your generosity. And instead of, I love that you're like, if you would have said, we want to have a generosity index, most people are just going to head right to, the market research firm.
Yeah.
Right. Or if we want to sell more people pizza, maybe they would have gone to the pizza truck, but it would have been your standard, like, let's make money off the pizza truck and create a splash because we've got a big green truck coming through. And I love that you guys brought the two together.
Hey, Erin here. So I know we talk often about this concept of authenticity as a secret weapon to success. I swear to you, my authenticity was literally the number one thing that helped me become both the CEO of a 9-figure company at the age of 42, but also that helped me lead an insanely successful financial and cultural turnaround of that same company. But I get that authenticity as a secret weapon kind of sounds fluffy, like fluffy unicorn doo-doo that leaves you wondering, what do I actually wake up tomorrow and do differently without looking stupid or getting fired? This is exactly why I put together the Authenticity Playbook for you. It gives you 10 plays or really thought starters that are simple, actionable things that will help you up your career and leadership game. To get your free Authenticity Playbook, go to beauthenticinc.com/playbook. Again, that's beauthenticinc.com, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/playbook. Or to make it simple, just scroll down to the show notes and we've got you covered with a link there too.
We talked about the 50% rule. You are one of the bazillion people that, I often tell people, well, why did I write a book? Well, part of the reason is I feel like every freaking time I'm with somebody and we're talking about something and some hurdle will come up and I'm just like, I blurt out, well, why don't you think about 50% ruling it? And last time we had coffee, we were just talking about, marketing and how you were trying to think about things differently. And I blurted it out not because I'm trying to market, because it seems to always be like the thing that I think would help. So you got a chance to early read it, and I was really shocked. You to tell us a little bit about what you got from the book and how it was.
Well, first of all, let's take a step back because timing may not be perfect relative to when this is broadcast, but I have to congratulate you because didn't it just hit
yesterday? It was officially launched. Yeah, and this will be out like a week later. So
that's fantastic. It's really fantastic. I mean, Aaron, I have, I don't know, countless, nonfiction business books on a desk that I have read a chapter maybe or two, right? Much to the chagrin of my wife who sees all these books that I have piling up. You sent me the pre-read on this. I don't know, we read it over the summer or something, I think it was. And I literally read your book cover to cover. I don't think I could name another book unless it was probably in school that I had to read that I've read cover to cover. Usually you kind of pick out chapters, things that are interesting, whatever. But it is such easy read makes it sound like it's not valuable and it's highly valuable. But it's an easy read in terms of it's compelling and draws you in, and they're funny stories and you're just you. So of course that's always fascinating. And it really makes you think relative to, well, what am I doing and how does this apply? And back, sometimes I'd have to go back and kind of say, all right, I've been reading. I was sleep reading, right? I was reading, but thinking about things
that's what I want you to do.
So I had to go back and say, okay, I missed like the past 2 pages.
No, that's what I want you to do. I mean, any story you should be half daydreaming off your own. And how does this, make me think about my own situation? 100%.
Totally. In terms of the things that really resonated with me, for me, the most fascinating one was not fascinating. It was fascinating. It was interesting. Was the Savannah Bananas. I love that story because I just was like, what? But it's so innovative, and in terms of our own business, we need to, based on the size of our business, continue to focus on innovation. Right? There are so many companies that are bigger doing things, and they have far more budget than we have, and so we've got to continue to innovate. And I do think, like anyone else, you kind of get stuck in a rut after a while. Companies 42 plus years old, a lot of times we'll fall into the kind of trap of, well, we've done that before. Well, but that was then, and there was a particular set of circumstances back then that perhaps didn't allow something to be successful. And now is a different time, or the circumstance is different. So, and did we think about it in a way that was different, or we were just following kind of a recipe of, well, here's the recipe for success, and so that's what you do. Can't do that, right? And that's what I love about it is, and you said it in the book. I've applied to so many different things in my personal life and as the business that I just mentioned. It's just kind of fascinating. And I think it's liberating. I really do. Because you don't get stuck in the shit that, we all tend to get stuck in. And that the sleep running is the one that always sticks in my head as well. Or you shouldn't do something. What did you say? You shouldn't do something because you hate the way it's been done before.
Instead do it your own way.
Should not be right.
Yeah, nailed it.
Should not do something. That's it. Yes. So again, I'm a convert. It's just really interesting to me, the application of a simple concept. And it's not some, deep business school sort of thing that you have to commit to memory. It's just, how do you break out of, in my thinking, and break out of the norms and conditions that we all get trapped into. So I'll stop there for now, but it's just, I reached out to you immediately. I read it in probably 2.5 days in my office, right? Like probably 6 other things I should have been doing. But it was just like, I want to get through this. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thank you. So, people don't realize how helpful that, right, is for authors. This is a book that I ridiculously believe in, but that doesn't mean that I'm, walk around confident as hell that everybody's going to love it. And obviously everybody won't. But yeah, that was, and And it was a PDF. I'm like, reading a PDF is not very fun. It's like you're sitting on a beach getting to flip through the pages. But yeah, that week, both you and then another friend that's a CHRO who you know, she read it in like a day and a half too. And I was just really happy that you could apply it and that it worked,
Yeah.
and that you can bring it to others. I mean, I think that's the most important thing too, is it's a team sport. It's more, I think the 50% rule is going to be a hell of a lot more fun and they don't have to read the book. You can explain what it is. The book just ingrains it in your brain because of all the stories. But it's a lot more fun. Like when I go to team meetings, we have this shortcut, Rachel gets stuck and I'll be like, well, 50% rule it. And she's like, oh yeah, right. Like it just breaks you out of that trance. And to your point, it liberates. So thank you so much for doing that and reading that. So I just have a couple final questions. We always love to get a story from our guests about a time that you bucked that segment and, a time that you bucked the norm and good things happened. Is there a story that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of personal ones. I think for me, that's been a lot of my life, frankly. And we can get into that if you want to, but the business one for me was, I was in a retail organization. I had moved into HR in that organization. At that point, I'd probably, from a specialty standpoint, done maybe, I'll say roughly half of the thing that an HR professional would do, right? And I got an opportunity to go to a nonprofit. Actually, I'm sorry, it was a for-profit business, but it was Medicaid and managed care business and lead HR. It was my first HR leadership role for the organization. It was a startup. It was fascinating. And I remember when I resigned from the retail business that I was there working in at the time and telling the head of HR, where I was going and what I was going to be doing. And the question out of their mouth was, are you sure this is a good decision? And so I asked, well, what do you mean by that? Well, there's a lot of risk involved in this. You haven't done or necessarily all the things that you would need to do to lead an HR function. I said, well, that's very true. I said, but it's a great learning opportunity. I said, well, look, if someone said I could be the CEO of this organization, I might be willing to take that on as well, because wow, what an opportunity. How much would I learn and so forth? And the response was, yeah, but think of the risk. I mean, there are so many people that would be at risk if you were unsuccessful in that venture. To which I said, well, okay, but if I'm successful and I create engagement that drives better outcomes for this organization, think of all the people that would be happy, right, around that. And so there was doubt being kind of sowed in a quiet way as to whether or not I should make this move, or perhaps even whether or not I was qualified to make the move. So yeah, could I have stayed in that retail organization and learn more about different facets of HR and grow my career over the course of time? Maybe. But one of the biggest growth opportunities I'd had was moving to that healthcare business.
Yeah.
And really both learning the business, learning HR, right? All the things that I was not experienced in prior. Did you make mistakes? Of course I made mistakes, but that's where you learn most is from mistakes that you make, and you obviously try not to repeat those.
Yeah.
So for me, the bucking the trend was, safer thing would have been to stay where I was, but with risk comes reward. So there you go.
Well, I love that story. I mean, it's so important to get 50% uncomfortable. It's, sort of the 50% rule.
Yep.
But also to our leaders that are listening, don't freaking be that guy, because it happens all the time. It's happening definitely to me. The leader that essentially waited, wanted to try to keep you and use a passive aggressive, like not make you feel confident sort of set of statements, instead of either upfront telling you months before, like, hey, I really value and want to keep you, A, right?
No.
And what do I need to do that? So don't freaking wait.
Yeah.
And B, don't send somebody off with that, because you're not going to keep them. You had already made the decision. And so either they're just trying to keep you or they're basically projecting their own insecurities on you. So for those that have been in that situation or leaders that are listening, don't be those freaking people. Don't be those people.
Leaders, re-recruit your keepers,
Yeah.
right? Got to invest and spend time.
Yes. I love that.
Yes. Good people have opportunities. They will always have opportunities.
Yep.
Create reasons for them to stay with you. Make sure that business card is not in their back pocket and leave it in a drawer somewhere.
Yep. So true. Before I ask the final question, we always ask where can people follow you, connect with you. Is LinkedIn the best place to do that, or where? Yeah.
Me, LinkedIn is the best place. Yes. Yeah.
Bruce Wallace. So yeah, we'll have that link in there. All right. Final question. What is your last tip to listeners on how they can make work suck less?
That is an easy one.
Okay.
I firmly believe the best day that I have in any company, in any day of my work, is when I get 3 belly laughs in that day. And I am 100% committed to this in terms of its effectiveness. It sounds simple, trite, whatever. It doesn't sound like it has anything to do with business, but it's all about people. It's all about engagement. And it's all about that engagement creating a desire to be there, right, in this organization and do the hard work that you're doing. That is just medicine. That's good medicine. And you actually laugh doing the work and with the people that you're doing that work with. That to me is essential. And anybody who may hear this, and I'm thinking of a couple of people in particular, would probably are laughing right now that I stated that. But I firmly believe that.
Well, and you give that out. I actually printed. I have to ask permission. I printed out. You're so good at this. The email you sent, you remember the email? And it wasn't just to me, it was to others. So you're probably okay with it. When I was going on the roller coaster trip to Mall of America. And this was Bruce's response when I let him, because Bruce was one of our National Authenticity Day judges. And so I was letting them know I was going out to Mall of America to announce our winners on the roller coaster. And he says, "A roller coaster, huh? Okay, 100% recommended pre-flight checklist. Kind tar to apply to your NFL wide receiver super grip gloves. Bug screen to cover your mouth, screaming in terror. Prior day electrolytes to minimize cramping, laughing in hysterics. Appropriately sized Depends. Consider 2 layers." And I love this one too, because you don't have hair, but you still recommend a hair appointment for as soon as possible because damn. And if all else fails, life insurance policy marked paid in full. So brilliant. I love the 3 belly laughs, and you know what? You can't just take them; you have to give them, and you do give them. And I think it's such great advice. And I thank you for being on this pod chat. I love that you call it a pod chat, which is your fun, flippant way to sort of enter into the podcast world and share all of your thoughts with our listeners. Thank you so much, Bruce.
I am just happy to do it. I'm grateful that you've asked, honored in fact. So you're so welcome and thank you.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us, and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. And we see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.